Welcome, one and all. I'm dedicating the Shili Nishmat, my great-grandfather, Chaim Yaakov ben Meir, Nisham Shav and Aliyah. His yahrzeit is tonight, tomorrow. What you are holding in your hands, and if you're at home, what you will see in the PDF that was put into the WhatsApp chat is what we will need for tonight to continue our foray into the world of astronomy. I do have to open with core agenda. I had originally indicated that, as far as I could tell, Chazal thought, as almost the entire world basically thought, the earth was flat. However, turns out there's a Yerushalmi in Avodah Zarah, Parag Gimel, Halacha Aleph, that actually refers to the world as a kadur. There's a Medrash Rabbah and Bamidbar Rabbah, Parshat Naso, that makes a similar claim. So that's two Mamari Chazal that actually indicate that there was clearly some awareness that the world was round.
We have it in Yeshayahu.
Pardon? Oh, Chug al Chug Haaretz. Right, right. The question is, could that be reinterpreted in some other way as being flat? So that's it's a question. I'm gonna begin where I left off. I had, I was introducing last week some of the astronomical things that we need to know. It's extremely oversimplified. Firstly, because I am not an astronomer. And secondly, because the little bit that I know, I can't convey in a shiur, in one shiur, which is really very little. But I don't think I convey it in a single shiur, and it'll be the whole shiur just talking about these issues. I've been studying this for quite a while, and so I'll try my utmost to explain it as best I can. The first thing to say is that we're out of copies? No, it might be Tom. 15 copies. Should be a couple more. Yeah, so Judah doesn't have. No, yeah, okay, he does have. Okay, so there's the scientific reality, and that scientific reality, we come to new understandings at various times. Chazal are endeavoring to understand the scientific reality, but only insofar as it will help them to figure out the halacha. So when we get to issues of Kiddush HaChodesh, we're going to make some assumptions that will be based on our perspective of things, not necessarily on the scientific element thereof, by which I mean the world, everyone, mamash everyone, pe'echad, believed that that planet Earth was not just a planet, but was at the center of everything. There's no universe, there's nothing. There's a planet Earth, everything is around it, symmetrically placed around planet Earth. Number one. Number two, the stars are all in the same orbit as each other. They are very far away. People knew that, but they are basically one flat, call it sphere, the outer sphere.
It's called the fixed sphere.
Yeah, yeah. What's after that? The ether, nothing, zero. The nebula, there's nothing to talk about. This was the common understanding. I mentioned already that the Copernican revolution in 15, I think it's 41, 42, 43, something like that, he publishes this paper that claims that maybe things aren't exactly so, and maybe the sun is in the center and the earth is somehow rotating around it. By the time you get to Galileo, who believed Copernicus was correct, and there was a raging debate. There's someone else named Tycho Brahe who had another view that everything is really revolving around everything else somehow, everything's relative, had his own view. Johannes Kepler, there was a few of these people around. So by the time you get to Galileo, the church wants to kill him unless he recants his view and goes back to their view. You should be aware that among Chachamim Zichronim Livracha, the Chachamim of that time, there was a big discussion going on about it. And you have a Talmud of the Maharal, Rav David Gans. He's buried in the cemetery in Prague, who, as far as we know, did have some interaction with some of the greats of that time, not Copernicus, but a little bit later, and probably Kepler, in fact. And he's considering the idea of the possibility of heliocentricity instead of geocentricity. Nobody knows there are galaxies. Nobody knows there are some innumerable number of galaxies. Nobody has any clue about that still. That's not going to come for quite a while, okay? Still, people will be put to death. There's someone named Bruno. I forgot his first name. His last name was Bruno, who was put to death for his views, which were Copernican and all these different things by the church. They killed him, and someone killed him. So this was like a big issue, a big inyan. For Klal Yisrael, there is a big discussion in the Jewish world, like what are we supposed to do with this, and what does it say about our sense of self, and but practically from a halachic vantage point, and I say all of this by way of introduction, so we can get to the meat and potatoes for tonight. We're going to involve these pictures. From our perspective on planet Earth, we of course want to understand things based on the truth of the chachma that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up in the Bria. We ought to understand it, but from our perspective, in order to understand the Gemaras that we're up to, we're sitting on planet Earth. From our perspective, whether the Earth is round or flat doesn't make a difference. We see what we see flat, and we see the sky above us. And zehu zeh. By the by, the idea that the Earth was round, the people who believed it was round did think also that it was somehow round, but immersed in some kind of a massive, basically ocean that itself was probably spherical, but there was nothing there. And then you get to the revolution in 1492, right? That changes everything. But there was discussion there also if planet Earth was actually just round, or if planet Earth, the civilized part, was sort of sitting on or in rather some kind of a body of water, which gives new meaning to the expression "Mayim asher ein lahem sof" that you read about in Masechet Gittin, etc. The water that has no end. Why? Because it was this vast ocean, and no one, right? The ocean is still vast. They still call it Mayim asher ein lahem sof, but it might have had a different connotation back in the day. From our vantage point, where we are, literally on planet Earth, what we observe, what we see with our eyes, which does not, in my view, correspond to the scientific, but it's how we experience it, is the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. But the sun in the world of science, of course, does not really rise in the east and set in the west. We think that's what's happening, but really, planet Earth is spinning. And so it looks like the sun is going up and down relative to planet Earth. But actually, the sun is here, and we're spinning rotationally. Every time we spin, right? We call that 24 hours, right? We call it that. That's going to be one day. Yeah. When we go around the sun one time, that's a year. Everybody's with me on that. The ancients didn't know that by ancients, I mean like till the 17, 18, 19, the early 1900s. Now it's obvious because you can send a satellite and everybody knows it's going around. But until then, there were all sorts of scientific proofs that people were trying to marshal, right? Before humanity sends any object into outer space and actually confirms with their eyes, yes, planet Earth is round, there had to be other scientific proofs to try to show for it without actually leaving the planet because they couldn't get out. Okay? I say this because what was a year? What's a year? So you'll tell me, well, a year, dear Rabbi, is pretty obviously when planet Earth makes one full revolution around the sun, that's a year. You'd be right. It's called a solar year, right? What's a lunar year? When the moon goes around the Earth 12 times, right? And it's a shorter amount of time. We're going to come into this a lot more in the Chafs, but we need this for tonight for the following reason. What the ancients could see, and when I say the ancients, I'm using that term advisedly because I mean Jewish, not Jewish, it's on top of everybody, was the reality of stars. And those stars drawing lines between the dots, we call those constellations. By convention, Chazal also, I should qualify, whether by convention or by some kind of received tradition that comes from Adam Arishon and Lo Yodea, there's an agreed upon series of constellations and what they're called. Now, that's where we stop. They're not animated by our lights. That was a weird pun. But for the non-Jewish world, that's what Ovdei Kochavim Umazalot actually were. They worship the constellations and the stars. Why? Because there are, and again, I'm using this, and this is what the Masif, this pictures from the Masif Gemara uses in order to understand it. There are essentially, you could say, 12 constellations. Okay, now there are way more than 12 constellations, but 12 constellations that have names. Okay, those constellations,
the number of named constellations about 88.
Yeah, it's 80. It is 80. Yes, it's 88. It's 88. Yeah.
Southern Hemisphere.
88. Right. 88. Correct. 88. 48 of which we can see in the northern hemisphere, and then the rest are in the southern. But let's just say that in the northern hemisphere, where most of civilization of the West is known to be, actually, and the East, come to think of it, right? There are, let's call it 12 known constellations. Now you know there's really way more. It doesn't matter for our purposes, just to listen how this goes. Okay, the constellations actually pass through, or again, this is not scientifically accurate. It's just accurate for our purposes to learn Masechet Rosh Hashanah. It's how it's sort of like to be able to have a model in your mind. From our perspective on planet Earth, when we look at the night sky, okay? I have an app that I haven't used in many years actually, but okay. You can aim it at the sky and it'll tell you like what constellation's what. But here's the crazy thing, even in the middle of the night, if you aim it at the floor, wherever you're standing, it'll tell you what the constellations are that are underneath planet Earth, underneath you. The 12 constellations actually form essentially a ring around planet Earth. If you, again, this is just sort of a model. It's a very, very oversimplified model. It's not scientific because, again, that's not really what's happening. So what's happening is planet Earth is just moving in a circle. Okay. Every single 24-hour period that transpires, all 12 constellations will actually be seen. Well, not seen. All 12 constellations will rotate on the sky, in the sky above us. We don't see 6 of those constellations any given day. You know why? Because there's a sunshine at the same time. From our perspective, I am not speaking scientifically, believe you me, but from our perspective, the sun is moving together, how we view it, not how it actually is in the emis, but how it is in our perception. The sun seems to be moving with the constellation around. Now, when it's moving with that particular constellation, we don't see that constellation because the sun is so close to it, can't see the stars, okay? Since there are 12 of these constellations, as it turns out, the constellations can be viewed as zones in the sky. Since it's 360 degrees, say it's 30, each constellation gets 30 degrees worth. Every month, the sun is basically within the zone of one of those constellations as it goes around. Okay? And the sun is actually also moving. Again, this is totally not right scientific. I feel almost heretical to say it because it's just not really true, but it's true for our purposes as denizens of planet Earth who look at the sky. The Rambam writes this in Hilchot Kiddush HaChodesh in one place. Imagine a millstone that's turning, okay, in a clockwise fashion. Imagine there's an ant that's walking in a counterclockwise fashion on the millstone. So the millstone is turning rather quickly. So the ant is actually moving with the millstone. But because the ant is also very slowly moving, kinamala, al gabe, Evan, I forgot what he called it already. It's going of the Rechaim. Thank you, the Evan Rechaim. So he's going in that direction. Over time, if you were standing in one place, you would see that the ant, even though every time it goes around in a circle, at the beginning, it looks like it's in the same place, but because it's incrementally moving slowly against the grain of the direction, so that's moving clockwise, so it's moving counterclockwise, over time, it will seem that it is actually also moving around on the Rechaim stone. Follow? That is meant to be the analogy, which in the days of the Rambam was actually what they really literally thought, because nobody knew. It's a secret about the Shem encoded in the world. We just daven today, we daven every day, but today especially, and Tilm Kuftav repeated a second time, Marabu Masech Hashem, right? So we didn't know. Now we understand it better. But using that logic, what's actually happening every time in the night sky is that the constellations we see every night, 6 of them. Every day, 6 of them we don't see because they're covered by the sun. They're blotted out. But when it's when we experience the daytime, where are the other 6 constellations? They're underneath the Earth. They're just on the other side of the planet. Okay. Again, from our vantage point, this is not scientifically correct. It's dead wrong, but it's how we experience it. The constellations are constantly going around all the time. Every minute they're going around. If you stood in the night sky for long enough, you would actually be able to see that it's actually the constellations are moving over the period of time of night. The daytime, you don't see them. I'm repeating it again, but they're coming up with the sun. Each month, and now we're getting to a year, each month is each constellation that is passing through a year is once you have all 12 constellations having gone around such that the sun has returned again to be in the original constellation that it was in previously. A year ago. So now I'll give you the example a little more directly. If you look with me on page in this packet over here, it should say picture should be Memhe. Picture Memhe. So the moon, if this is the sun, so the Earth is going around the sun, but the moon is a satellite of planet Earth, and the moon is going around planet Earth. The moon is going around planet Earth.
That's revolving around.
It's revolving around planet Earth, and then the whole unit of the Earth with the moon around it is itself going around the sun, and all the planets are going around the sun. But then it turned out nobody knew that the sun is not really stationary either. It's also moving all the time.
The Earth revolves and rotates.
Correct.
The moon only revolves; it does not rotate.
Yep, right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but the moon, but it's going around. The whole thing is going around around the sun.
It also rotates while it's going around.
Yeah.
The moon.
I know. Yeah. That's why the dark side of the moon. Correct. But it is tethered. But it is tethered in such a way that's going around planet Earth all the time. Okay. But as a unit, as it's going around Earth, Earth itself with its satellite moon is going around. Other planets have more moons in many cases. Yeah. So is everyone with me? I've bamboozled you completely. Look at page Mem Chavbet. Look at picture Memhe. Okay. Again, it's an artist's rendering, obviously, but not only that, this is not a scientific picture you're looking at. It's how you would experience it when you're standing outside watching the night sky or the day sky. The picture on picture Memhe is the picture of the month of Iyar. So the month of Nisan is called Tleh, Lamb, Aries. The next one is the Shor, right? Taurus. So that's Shor is Iyar. After that is Teomim, Gemini, Sivan. After that comes should be Sartan, Cancer. After that comes, that's Tammuz. Aryeh, Chodesh Av. Betula, Chodesh Tov, Elul. Moznayim, the scales, Tishrei. Akrav, Scorpio, Cheshvan. Kislev is the Keshet, the bow. Tevet is the Gedi, kid. The Shvat is the Deli, is a pail, right? Yeah. And the last one is Pisces, is Dagim, Mazal Dagim. Okay. This is a universal thing about these pictures. The point is, they don't have any inherent meaning. They do have inherent meaning. Lo yodea. This is how we got into Avodat Kochavim Mazalot. But even Chazal understood that the reason we need these constellations because it tells us something about how to tell time, how to know what a year is, using the sun, but not using the sun on the daily, up and down when the sun, again, not scientifically, the sun, we perceive it as going around the earth, but how many times is it going to go around the earth? How do you know a year has passed? Oh, when the moon goes 12 cycles, why did you decide that? Why isn't it 15? Why isn't it 30? The answer is because the constellations will be at a certain point. The constellation, use the example here of Tleh. If you look in picture Memhe, page Chavbet, you have the Mazal Tleh, the picture of Tleh. Again, it's a zone. It has in it the Tleh. It's approximately 30 degrees in the sky, 30 degrees. And that 30-degree span, each one 30-degree span, on the first day on Rosh Chodesh, the sun rises at the exact moment that the constellation Tle is also rising in the eastern sky. You'll never see it. But Tle goes up with the sun and goes down. On the second day, or let's say the 15th day of Nisan, Pesach, Mazal Tle, half of the Mazal, 15 degrees have already come up. Then the sun comes up in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the 30-degree zone of Mazal Tle, and it goes up around like that. By the time you get to day 30, 29, 30, whatever it is, right? Because we also have the lunar calendar, but on the solar calendar, this is how how it works. You're going to get to the Mazal shore. After day 30, you're going to go to day 31 as day 1 again of the next Mazal.
So today
Sure.
So today would be, because today is the first day of Elul, so it would be this.
When the sun rose today, I can tell you, based on this, it rose with Mazal Betula. Mazal Betula, because Betula is Elul. You understand how it works? And once it's gone, now, the sun, therefore, in the sky looks like every day it's moved over a little bit compared to the stars. The way we're understanding this, which is, I repeat again and again, it's not scientific. It's strictly based on how we see things. Imagine, erroneously, but imagine. So you can imagine anything. Imagine there was a massive sphere of stars that were flat, that were one orbit. They're all in that orbit. They're really small because they're far, but they're just one thing. And then the sun has them in the background. They're like the backdrop. They're the stage, the backdrop, and then the sun is moving around in the opposite direction very slowly. No one can understand why is it going the opposite direction. They had a theory of galgalim, of spheres, all different ideas, but that's what people understood. What we understood is that as the time was passing, as we were going through the year, the constellations were shifting, so that during the summer months we could see in the sky the 6 constellations every night passing over that were not the ones of the daytime, but of the nighttime. But since it's always shifting, as time was passing, you could start losing some on one side and gaining some on the other in the night sky. Okay? Are you with me? Did I totally bamboozle you, or are you sort of with me? Yes? A little bit?
At this point, was there an appreciation that the constellations were syncing with the solar year and not the lunar year?
Yeah, for sure. That's the point. That's the point, is that from here.
There's no constellation for Adar Sheni, so to speak.
Right, because there had to be a reconciliation between the fact that once we know that there are 12 solar months, so there are also 12 lunar months, and that's part of our Masorah, but the lunar cycle, for it to go around 12 times, right, in the rotation, is only 354 and change. And the solar is 365 and a quarter. So it wasn't worth adding up. So you need a reconciliation. Right. So that was understood. But the point is that corrective then was actually going to make sure that the tekufa, a tekufa means a season. There are 4 tekufot: tekufat Nisan, tekufat Tammuz, tekufat Tishrei, tekufat Tevet. There, because those months are the onset of the new season, to always recalibrate things so that the time period of Pesach would always be b'chodesh ha'aviv. I'm leaving out a few details over here about the fact that these constellations actually take 23 hours, 56 minutes and something seconds, and the solar day is like 24 hours. So like, how do you reconcile the little discrepancy? You're left over with a little bit and whatever. So yeah, please.
And ask one thing. In looking at the disk, which is,
The disk is what we experience, not because the planet Earth is flat. Yeah.
what is the relationship with the sun?
Okay. In this picture, what you're seeing is the moment of sunrise.
Their
The
concept was the sun was what, was where?
the sun is their concept was the sun, and how we experience it. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. The sun's going around the earth. Okay. The white line that bisects the whole sphere is basically, you could call it the axis of planet Earth, which is also, for our purposes, the axis of this massive outer sphere that is not really a sphere, right, of stars. As it happens, there's a red band. You see the red line? That red line is where the sun will always be. Okay, for oversimplification purposes, the truth is it does hover in a little bit of a range, but it's going around. This is taken. This is if a person standing in Eretz Yisrael. That's how the night sky looks. The constellations don't go literally from east to west, but they go as a band across the sky, a little bit at an angle. Where would they not go at an angle? If you were standing at the North Pole, or if you're standing at the equator, then it's either going right over you, or you're not seeing anything. You're just seeing the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper going around the North Star, which, by the way, it's not actually really going around. That's another story. Okay, too much. Now look at the picture again. You can see in the background of the picture, the disk is not to say the Earth is flat. The disk here is just what is our perception. It's as if we're standing on a flat surface and we see this dome above us, right? So look, the person is standing, and if they were looking at the sun, which is in the background of the picture, or the back, so to speak, of the picture, you see above it says Tle. Now, if you look to the left, somewhat to the left of it, somewhat cut into the brown disk is the word shore. Because when Tle, sunrise is happening at the end of Tle, at the beginning of shore that's on the line, that is Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Okay? We, the Jewish people, do not count our months this way. We count our months by the lunar calendar, such as our mitzvah Chodesh Zelachem Rosh Chodashim. But unlike a certain other religion that only sees things through the prism of the sun or the moon, we are the amalgamation of the two because we have this ongoing corrective system of an extra month that we add, a lunar month that will recalibrate things so that when the solar and the lunar are a month out of whack, we bring it back into calibration so that Pesach will always be B'chodesh Ha'aviv, also known as Tkufat Nisan, in that season. Now, after shore, you can't really see the word, but it's sort of on the all the way to the, I don't know what I'd say at what 8:30, 8:45 in a circle over here to Omim. Blocked, you can't even see it, is Sartan, Cancer. You can then see on the bottom of the circle Aryeh. Then next to it Betula, next to it Moznayim, next to it Akrav, next to it Keshet. Blocked after that is Gedi, right? After Gedi, you have a Dli. Blocked also. Then you have the word Dagim. Dagim is Adar. And then you're back to Tlet. It rotates in the sky from east to west. And therefore, as the sun is coming up, whatever constellation is the background of the sun, which you never see at that time, that's the month you're in. Are you with me? Huh?
You're rotating towards the right.
Yeah.
That way.
Send it. But exactly, because we're rotating that way, so it looks like it's going that way. Right. Again, so just for simplicity's sake, you have to build a model. Sometimes that is, it's not real, but it's a model in your mind. See, it's a mental model. Now, to understand this, also to understand that as the Mazal of, let's say, shore is coming up with the sunrise, what is setting exactly that time? Its partner on the other side, 6 constellations away, is Akrav. What is that? Scorpio. It's going down as the shore is coming up. The Akrav is going down. Okay. The fatal flaw for the ancient world was that they then deified these objects and made them gods. They gave them other names, this and that, right? But the planets all had different represented different gods, etc. That's Avodah Zarah. So we're enjoined from Avodat Kochavim Mazalot. This is Avram Avinu saying, no, these things were put there by God. They're clearly very significant to understand time and where we're located to orient ourselves, but they are not related to theology, to Hashem, to running the world, except that he put them there. Yeah? Okay. So now.
So is that why Birchat Chama comes out every?
Oh, no. That's another thing.
Okay.
That's another Maisa, which also has to do with our experience of it. Halavai will get that far. I hope no one's brain is just like exploding on this issue. Yeah, but here's why we need to know this whole thing. Okay, if you look by the by at the bottom of the same page, Memvav, this is the night. This is the sky, 2 hours before sunrise. Why 2 hours? I just told you there are 12 constellations. So there's 24 hours in a day. So every constellation gets its 2 hours to rise. and 2 hours to set. You following it? You following what's going on? So now 2 hours before, notice that 2 hours before, what's beneath the surface of planet Earth? Again, your perception of what's beneath the surface is Tle, because 2 hours before sunrise. So therefore, Tle is going to take 2 hours to come up, and sunrise will transpire when shore starts to come, which is at Rosh Chodesh Iyar. So that's why the sun is even further below that white line, because that's the axis that it's turning on. Okay. Now, turn to the back of that page to picture Mem Zayin. Picture Mem Zayin tells us what's happening in Chodesh Mar Cheshvan. I'm focusing on Iyar Mar Cheshvan not only because the Masifta Gemara did, but because we're going to need it for our Gemara. Halavai, we're even going to get to the Gemara. But this will set us up for when we get to a lot of things about Kiddush HaChodesh. We'll have the background already. So I'm spending the time now. I hope it's time well spent. So here is the same, surface. The person standing on planet Earth. You see all the way back. It's a little yellow circle. See that little yellow? That's the sun rising. But now, when does the sun rise? When you get to Mar Cheshvan, I told you Tishrei is the scales. It's not accidental. Tishrei, the 7th month of the biblical months, also happens to be of scales because it's about judgment. So now, as the one after Moznaim is Akrav, is Scorpio, is rising. So you see it's still under the surface of the earth, in quotation marks, under the surface of what you see. But as you watch sunrise, what you can't see right behind it is that the constellation of Akrav, Mar Cheshvan, is right behind it. And it's going to trail it. The 15th day of the month of Mar Cheshvan, this will be instructive for our Gemara, is half of the constellations already come up. You might even see a little piece of it, but not really, because the sun is going to be right in the middle of that 2 hour span that Mazal Akrav has to rise. In the middle of it now, that's where the sun will be. On day 15, and so on and so forth. On day 30, if there was such a thing in Mar Cheshvan, so then day 30, it's going to be at the end of the 2 hours of Mazal Akrav's rising. And then the next day, it falls into Mazal Keshet, and that's already Chodesh Kislev. Ancient Egyptians, Sumerians, all the peoples who used solar calendars, this is what they're doing. That's the thing. That's where they get the idea about a year. We have a mitzvah says no. We're going to enumerate it according to the chodashim of the Levana, Chidush HaLevana, the dynamism of the Levana, waxing and waning, etc. And we're going to count every 12 of those. That's going to be a year, and then we're going to have to reconcile between the two. Yeah.
Winter days are shorter than the summer days.
The winter days are shorter than the summer days. It has to do with the variance that I didn't explain to you tonight, which we'll get to later, which is that if you ever notice, if you look into the eastern sky, if you have a window in your house, you know that in the summer and in the winter, the sun is actually not rising exactly in the same place. It's actually shifting between north and south within the range of the eastern sky. It's a little more northeast, a little more southeast. So in the northern hemisphere, in the summer, the nature of the sun's trajectory over planet Earth against our perception is that it's a much larger arc. So it spends more time above us and heats us more, and it's a longer day because a longer trajectory. In the winter, the angle changes and it's a shorter run for it to be from sunrise to sunset. We'll get to it more in depth when we get there. Involving Kiddush HaChodesh, we're going to need to know that as it's kufot. But back to what I'm saying here, as the Mazal Akrav is going up, the Mazal shore is going down. Notice that after shore, already under the horizon is the Tle, right? Tle is already set, and shore is going down as Akrav is coming up. If you look at the bottom of page of Memchet, right? Okay, so you see Shatam Achaz Richat Hashemesh Mar Cheshvan, 2 hours after the sun has risen. So it's showing you off in the distance. It's hard to see because it's behind. Again, we're looking at exactly the same image each time. All that's changing is the ring of the constellations. So the akrav has completely come up. 2 hours have gone by. So you notice there's a little yellow dot toward the top of page of picture memchet, which is the bottom of this page. And you see that's where the sun is now. It's going around and it's going to stay in that constellation for that day. The next day, it'll be imperceptible, but it'll be moved over a little bit inside that constellation. After 30 days, it's leaving that, having that constellation's background as something else's background. Are you with me? Did I lose everybody? I'm not sure if you, yes? Okay. Now, what we need to know for tonight was that background and one other thing. And that one other thing is that in between the constellation, because now we know there are 88 named constellations, right? They're actually, even in antiquity, they understood, and Chazal understood, that between the Mazal of Tleh and the Mazal of Shor, between Nisan and Iyar, there's another constellation there called Kima. In one place in the Gemara, Shmuel says it's a very bright constellation. It's called Kimeya, as if 100 stars are there. And indeed, that's true till today. Obviously, in the night sky, you can still see this small constellation, which some refer to as like some kind of a tail or something that comes off of one of these animals. Again, these pictures, which when you look at them, it's kind of hard to see how they're actually the pictures they say they are, but whatever. But okay, and that constellation in between Mazal, Shor, Mazal Tleh, and Mazal Shor, Tleh being Nisan, Shor being Iyar, that constellation will be instructive for the machloket between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. We said that Rabbi Yeshua maintains the world was created in Chodesh Nisan. Rabbi Eliezer maintains the world was created in Chodesh Tishrei. I already mentioned to you that by my lights, I don't think there's anything heretical in understanding that these are concepts to understand what season are we saying is the season when humanity was created. I'm defining humanity as the physical animal creature that is endowed with a neshama. I have called it Selam Elokim. That time, when was it? Nisan or Tishrei? That's what we're talking about. We're not really talking about, I mentioned this in the previous year, we're not really talking about the first 6 days of creation. We're not saying Yehi Or was in Nisan or Tishrei. You know why? Because there's no solar system. So they couldn't have been. There's no solar system. There's no universe. Yehi Or, Vayi Or. Was that in Nisan or Tishrei? There's no time. Okay. Now was there time kiviyachol in the mind of the Rebbeinu Shalom? Sure.
Yeah, why can't you say you work backwards from the?
We do, but now we say it's either Chaf Hey Elul or Chaf Hey Adar. What's the commemoration on that day? 0. What do we do on that day? Nothing. Is it a holiday? Do we skip Tachan or do something? No. Saying Slichas. We're saying Slichas. That's all we're doing. But we maybe started Slichas maybe a week earlier. What? An Elul. But that's it, right? The Sfardim already started tomorrow morning, starting Slichas. They're going to go the whole time, right? But say the machloka between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua is what is the moment of the creation of Adam Harishon? And I mean the creation of Adam Harishon as the moment that Adam Harishon is endowed with a neshama. Ayin Sham, the emergence of ethical man, a sefer written by Rav Soloveitchik, Zechat Tzadik Livracha. Fantastic, amazing, wondrous sefer, which takes a long time to read because it's very dense, but it's rooted in the halacha. And here's what I want to say about it. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua now also have a machloket about when the Mabul happened. And was the Mabul something that happened in the springtime or something that happened in the fall? Complicating matters is the fact that the Torah, before Perek Yud Bet of Sefer Shmot, where Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, HaChodesh Zeh Lechem Rosh Chodashim, there are dates in the Torah, rarely, but there are some dates of months, particularly at the time of the Mabul. Mm-hmm. Are those dates that go according to the time of Tishrei or according to the time of Nisan? And you could make the argument very simply both ways. You could say, well, the Torah wasn't given yet, and therefore any date that appears in the Torah before, some Rishonim have it that way, must refer to Tishrei as the first month, and Cheshvan is the second month, etc., etc. You could also say, no, Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu and the Klal Yisrael, and when he told them, okay, now write down Breshit, Shmot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Dvarim, he told them, that's how we do months. The first month, when I say the first month, I always mean Nisan. That's the machloket, Rabbi Eliezer on one side, Rabbi Yeshua on the other. Okay, so when you look at the Gemara on Yud Aleph Amud Bet, we learn the following. We saw already last time. Now we opened the Gemara, and now you'll have a better understanding of what this is about, or a little bit better understanding. I don't know if it'll be complete, but it'll be and then we're going to go to a few other pictures tonight as well to see them before we break. We're looking at Yud Aleph Amud Bet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines down from the top on 11b. va'azlu tamayu. Both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua follow their shita as follows. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braita, Bishnat Sheish Me'ot Shana L'Chayi Noach, B'Chodesh HaSheni, B'Shiva Asar Yom L'Chodesh. Right? So when is the 600 years of the life of Noach? In the second month, on the 17th day of that month. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Oto Yom, Yud Zayin B'Iyar Haya. And you know what Eliezer is going to say? It was Yud Zayin Mar Cheshvan. Okay? And what does he say here? Shemazal Kima Shokea B'Yom. Umayanot Mitma'atin. The Mazal Kima sets, and Rashi will have a different view of than Tosfot about what this means. Rashi's view is the word setting means there are two things, rising and setting. That's all there is. What is rising for Rashi? Rising is that first 2-hour period when the constellation is still emerging from below the horizon to be above the horizon. Everything after those 2 hours, the only thing it's doing, it's not rising anymore. It's risen because it's already in the daytime sky completely. Rather, it's setting. And it's setting, according to this, Shokea Bayom. Umayanot mitmatin, the cisterns, the naturally occurring well springs, right? But they're minimal at the time of Iyar. That's what he claims. They're minimum then. Umitoch sheshinu ma'aseyan, since the people at the time of the flood changed around their actions, right? Meaning, and this is what the Rishonim described, that well, the Torah describes, but the Rishonim go into a little more detail, that there was bestiality going on. They were pairing this animal with that animal, and the people with the animals, and the animals with the people. It was very messed up. So since they did that, so Shina Kodesh Baruch Hu Aleim Masa Breshit. Hashem changed something in Masa Breshit. Vehela Mazal Kima B'Yom. He caused the Mazal Kima to come up during the day. V'natal Shnei Kochavim Mikima. He removed 2 stars from Kima. Now, what does it mean removed? This Rabbi Yeshua says. Ve'evi Mabul Olam. And since he removed those 2 stars from within the constellation of Kima, that threw the whole cosmos out of whack, and that's why the flood happened. I'm going to read through the Gemara, and then we're going to see it in the pictures to actually have a clue what he's talking about. But you already have a clue, because I mentioned when is Kima? Oh, it's between Tle and Shore. Remember, we said that Tle and Shore. So now let me just finish. Hold on. Rabbi, second last line. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Oto Ayom Yud Zayin Mar Cheshvan Haya. Second month, 17th day is Mar Cheshvan. Yom Shemazal Kima Ole B'Yom. It's the day when the Mazal Kima comes up during the day. What does that mean? Comes up during the day? Strange. Umayanot Midgabrim. In the month of Mar Cheshvan, there's a lot of rainwater that's actually filling up the cisterns. It's the rainy season. Umitoch, next page. Sheshinu Ma'aseyam, same reason. Since the people messed up the way that they were acting, so what happened? Shina Kodesh Baruch Hu Ma'aseh Breshit. V'hela Mazal Kima B'Yom. He caused the Mazal Kima to go up during the day. And V'natal Shnei Kochavim, he took 2 stars from this constellation, right? Vehevi Mikima, he took it from Mikima, is missing. That's what the Aleph is. It says the Bach Mikima. Vehevi Mabul Olam, and he brought a flood to the world. So the Gemara says, well, it makes sense. Rabbi Yeshua Hanu Chtiv Sheni, Bishlam Rabbi Yeshua Hanu Chtiv Sheni, and we know that Sheni second month. The first month is Nisan, second month is Iyar, so it makes sense. Again, Rabbi Yezer, what does he say? Rabbi Yezer, my Sheni. No, Sheni Ladin. It's the second month after the din was rendered. When was the din rendered? Brilliant answer. The din was rendered at Chodesh Tishrei, because that's when the din is rendered for the whole world. But what's going to be for the whole world? Yeah. And you want to tell me that the first month of the year is Nisan, even from that time? I believe you. I agree. Except for one problem. There's the Sheni Ladin, the second month after the judgment was rendered, right? In the middle of Musaf, don't we start mentioning about the Mabul and the whole thing? That's why. So that's according to Rabbi Eliezer Shita, right? So Bishlam Rabbi Yeshua Hainu the Shina. El Rabbi Eliezer my Shina. According to Rabbi Hoshua, so it seems like that they did the wrong thing in terms of how they were acting. So God changed something also. He caused a Mazal Kima to be up during the day. And he also changed things around, that there was a lot of, as Rashi puts it, a lot of extra water in the underground cisterns, etc. El Rabbi Yezer, my Sheena. What do you mean, Rabbi Yezer? What do you mean Sheena? Because actually the constellation of Kima is actually up anyway during the time period of Mar Cheshvan during the day, for part of the day. So what does it mean, Sheena, that God changed things around? Says, so Rabbi Eliezer answers it, no, Rav Chisda said, Amar Rav Chisda, Barotchin kilkulu, Barotchin nidonu. Barotchin kilkulu ba'avera, Barotchin nidonu. So essentially, they messed things up through boiling a passion, through how they acted with passion. That's one of the interpretations, at least. Barotchin is how they acted. So they were judged that the water that impacted them in the flood that came up from below was boiling hot water, right? Which sounds miraculous, but there are all those undersea vents with burning water. And wasn't that thing with that old faithful that just happened at Yellowstone, the disaster? Yeah. So that started happening all over the place, and it was boiling water. Bavera kilkulu. Sorry, Barotchin kilkulu bavera Barotchin nidonu. Tiv hachavaya shoku hamayim uchtivhatam v'chamar hamelach shachacha. It said vaya shoku hamayim means the water somehow was abating. Gemara reads it as it was calmed down from its high temperature of heat. It says there, the anger of the king abated. We stop right there. We have to understand what is going on in this Gemara. And I'll tell you, this is a great example of the power of Rashi, because the Gemara that we just read was Rashi's Girsa and the Gemara. Tosfot didn't like Rashi's Girsa and the Gemara. They didn't dispute the science. That was the wrong word. They didn't dispute the understanding that they commonly shared and that we share about our perception about the constellations going around and the sun going around us, because that's how we experience it. But they disagreed about how to read this Gemara and exactly what Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Eliezer were arguing about. I don't know if we'll get to Tosfot, but at least let's see this inside. So now, go back to the first page. The first page, page Chaf Bet. Page Chaf Bet. Okay? The first page of this packet. It should be picture Memhei. And you see that Mazal Tzleh is there. If you see the sun is rising at Mazal shore because it's the Rosh Chodesh time. Do you see that? I don't know if you can even see it. It's very faded. Right, almost jutting out from the yellow circle that's supposed to represent the sun is a tiny little green circle. That tiny, you can only see part of it. That tiny green circle is Mazal Kima. That's where it's located. It's in between Tleh and shore. It's almost imperceptible. Okay. Now, if you look at the bottom page, picture rather than this page, picture Memvav, you'll see the sun, and you'll see there's a green that looks like there's some kind of a circle, most of which looks brown because it's obfuscated by it's blocked by the so to speak the surface of the earth. You see a little tiny green band underneath that little circle there that seems to run around the sun. It's not the sun's orbit. It's where Mazal Kima is in the background behind the sun. These are both pictures of Chodesh Iyar, the night sky and the day sky. The night sky, rather. Day sky, the sun is coming up, so the sun illuminates the sky. But underneath the horizon, or at that moment, that's where Mazal Kima is also coming up. 2 hours before, where's Mazal Kima? It's beneath the horizon with the sun. Because in Iyar, it's behind the sun. You never see it because it's blocked. When you turn the page, you're looking at now Mar Cheshvan. In Mar Cheshvan, the sun is rising. When does the sun rise in Mar Cheshvan? After Moznayim, which was Tishrei, in the time of Akrav, right? And as it's going up, the sun, this little yellow ball over there, it has behind it against the backdrop of Moznayim and going into Akrav. Now look in the foreground, so to speak, and you can see it's written almost vertically the word shore, and underneath the horizon says Tleh. There's a tiny little green circle in there between shore and Tleh, just to the right of the red band that looks like it's almost vertical. That's Mazal Kima. That's Mazal Kima. So as the sun is coming up, Mazal Kima has just gone down. Yeah, when the sun rises already, in Mar Cheshvan, Mazal Kima goes down. It's setting. Understand? Because it's 6 months away from before. And then 2 hours after the sun shining in Chodesh Mar Cheshvan, 2 hours after, you see that the sun is still in the sky, right? You see it there in Mar Cheshvan? See where it is? Okay. But if you look down on the ground, the sun is, by the way, between Moznaim, and it's not between Aryeh and Sartan. That's facing us. It's between Moznaim and Akrav. Still, it stays with it the whole day, right? The whole month, in fact, it stays in Akrav. So now look beneath the horizon line, almost to the bottom of the sphere, just to the right of that red line between Shor and Tle is a little green circle. That's Mazal Kima. I lost you. Did I lose you?
No, I need to.
You got to run.
That's fine.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Mazel tov. His daughter got engaged. Mazel tov. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. Well,
No.
I assume it's public.
Yeah, it's public.
Also, really thrilled for you. Okay. I need 5 more minutes to finish. But you got to run. You get to catch the recording at the end. Okay. So that's 2 hours after the sun has already come up. That's where the Mazal Kima is. Okay. Now go to the new page. It says Memtet on the top. Memtet is the picture. It's very faint, but we're gonna get through this. Actually, in this one, you can actually see the pictures. A little bit of the constellations are drawn here as well. I couldn't really make them out in the earlier ones. I guess they were all on all of them, right? You see little like almost purple lines with white dots in them. That's the constellations. Okay. Now, Likrat Shkiyat HaShemesh b'Mar Cheshvan Ola Mazal Tle. That's what the caption says. Likrat Shkiyat HaShemesh b'Mar Cheshvan Ola Mazal Tle. As the sun is setting, what's coming up? The Mazal of Tle. And just after the sunset, Bishkiyat HaShemesh b'Mar Cheshvan, what do you see? Look on the bottom picture now, picture Nun. What do you see between Tle and Shor? Now just over the horizon, just coming over the horizon, the night sky, in Mar Cheshvan, Kima. There she is again, or he. I don't know what it is. Doesn't have a gender. They. Oh, Baruch Hashem. The police aren't going to come get me. Okay, use the right pronoun. Hashem. We're being recorded. It's going to end badly. I have to edit the recording that I said that. Kima, we don't know. Kima seems to be the name of the constellation. I told you that there's a Gemara where Shmuel says it is Kimeya.
It's in Eob, it mentions.
Does it? Thank you. It would make sense. It would make sense. Makes sense. So, by the way, this discussion has nothing to do with the planets, which in Hebrew, for some reason, are called the Kochavei Lechet, because they thought of them also as Kochavim, because they know the difference between a Kochav and a Kochav, necessarily, right? Well, this is about stars. The actual Kochavim. Kochavei Lechet, aka planets, don't actually emit light. They move. They're moving. Kochavei Lechet. Lechet, yeah. Traveling.
Wasn't known at that time.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. But they knew the planets were different than the stars. They knew for sure they were different. They get their names. These are their own name. If you want to know, yeah. All right. Don't get us off. We're getting off topic. Look at picture Nun. As the sun has just set in the month of Mar Cheshvan, Mazal Kima is just coming up. What are Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Eliezer arguing about? The picture you're looking at now is Rabbi Eliezer's Shita. He holds that as the sun was setting and Mazal Kima was coming up and just came up in the sky, that Mazal Kima was going up. That's what messed things up. It's because of Mazal Kima that the Mabul happened. I mean, not because of Mazal Kima. Hashem took out something in Mazal Kima. He messed something up with the star, and it impacted something on planet Earth. Yeah. So that was the understanding. That's the idea. Now, how exactly does Hashem do it? What did he do? Ani lo yodea. But it's something about the idea that the Mazal Kima is associated with the rain, etc. Because Taka, when is Mazal Kima ascendant? In the beginning of the rainy season. For Rabbi Yehoshua, the whole thing is so crazy and unnatural because Iyar is not the rainy season. But go back, it's page Chav Bet, picture Mem, where is it? Mem Hey, right? Yeah. That the sun was blotting out Kima, but it was at sunrise that as it was coming up, so Hashem changed something in Mazal Kima, so it impacted the whole cosmos. Yeah. And that was in Iyar, Rabbi Yehoshua, Iyar. It's at sunrise. And we know that the Mabul happened during the day. It says so, therefore, it must be that as the sun was rising, with Mazal Kima. When does that happen? Oh, that happens in the Chodesh of Iyar, and the whole thing was totally unnatural, right? Meaning unnatural in the sense that everything burst forth. The cisterns, etc., and the well springs are all full because he just went through a whole rainy season, and they all came out. In Chodesh Tishrei, Mar Cheshvan, as Cheshvan is starting, they're not full yet because he just went through a whole summer. So there, the fact that suddenly there was all sorts of water, that itself is miraculous. Tosfot disagreed with Rashi in Rashi's formulation here because he felt, and you just read the beginning of Tosfot, Dibra Matli Yom Shemazal Kima Shokea Bayom, yeah, which was the girsa that we had. Where is it? Yudzayin Be'iyar Haya Yom Shemazal Kima Shokea Bayom. By the way, what's Shokea Bayom mean? It means that it's going to set during the daytime, because during the daytime of Chodesh Iyar, once you go around all the way around, it's going to be Shokea, means it's going down during the daytime. What is the Shokea for Rashi? Anything after the first 2 hours is Shokea. It's already setting. We say sunrise usually is everything until noon, and sunset is everything after. Not for Rashi. For Rashi, everything after the first 2 hours of it having risen in the sky, it's already a sunset. Everything is a massive sunset. Okay, not Shkia Chama itself, but the Shkia of the Mazalot. Because actually, every 2 hours, another Mazal is Shokea, right? If you want to do, Mazal set, what?
One's gone down in 2 hours.
One's going down every 2 hours. Every 2 hours. Another Mazal. It's not going down, it's just going beneath the horizon that we can see. So Tos would say, Garsinu Milta Rabbi Eliezer, Gabi Yodzam Mar Cheshvan, Vishina HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Maaseh Breshit V'Hela Kima B'Yom, that Hashem changed around Maaseh Breshit in order to cause Kima to come up during the day. Uva Milta Rabbi Yoshua Gabi Yodzam B'Iyar Garas Yom Shemazal Kima Oleh, because. And it turns out the whole thing turns on the semantic difference between Rashi and Tosfot was the definition of Oleh and Shokea. For Tosfot, I think Tosfot's Girsa to me is like more resonant. I don't know. They hold that according to Rabbi Eliezer, when it's Mar Cheshvan, so that's picture. Where are we here? Picture. You have the right one. Picture Mem Zayin, right? So for according to Rabbi Eliezer, he holds that what happens. He caused Kima to come up during the day itself. But actually, according to meaning, Kima, which is really between Tle and Shore, somehow was either displaced, it was still up during the day. Yotzemi said, according to Tosfot, Ole means that it's visible. Shokea means you can't see it anymore. For Rashi, Ole means the first 2 hours of the day. Shokea means everything after the first 2 hours of the day, while the constellation is moving across the sky. Kima, that's what Hashem changed according to Rabbi Eliezer. He caused either a slowing of the rotation of the earth, we would say. He wouldn't have said that because he didn't know that part. So he would have said a slowing of the whole cosmos somehow, so that Kima is actually staying in the sky for longer, or a displacement of Kima, that it moves somehow in the constellation. Again, for the ancients, the stars don't move. They don't move. They're fixed in this sphere. And that's why you can always see them, right? We know differently, but that's what they understood. So that was like a fixed point. The earth was fixed and the stars were fixed, but the earth was so fixed that the stars were somehow going around it and the sun was going the opposite direction around it.
Wait, I didn't understand what you just said. For the ancients, you said the constellations didn't move.
They don't move means as constellations. So the Big Dipper always looks like the Big Dipper,
Oh.
right? The Mazal, no, the sphere is rotating. The Keshet always looks like a Keshet, okay? But, I don't think anyone of us is going to be around when they finally, because by then Mashiach will have come, and who knows what's going to be. Yom Shekulah Shabbos.
Only caused by rain or the explosion of the systems?
Both. Arubara Shemayim and also all of the other internal waters as well. Both. The Talmud, yeah. The Torah says this explicitly. The Torah Shebetah.
So Mazal is explaining.
A machloket.
Mazal is explaining the rain, but as the loss of a piece of Kima. right?
Something like that. Loss of a piece,
When-
the removal, the shifting of it.
Something with Kima.
It's hard to know. Yeah,
An adjustment to Kima.
right.
That also affected the cisterns.
Correct. That's part of what's transpiring, right? That's what Psukim describe. It's a cosmic, cataclysmic event that causes both rain to fall, 40 days, 40 nights, and all of the Mayanot Tehom all come up, right? Now, before, I'm not speaking now scientifically about the Mabul, Maniodeh. Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Kol Yachol, he did whatever he did. I don't understand it. He did something. But we do understand today that the reason why there are tides and waves is related to gravity and is related to the moon. The moon has a pull on planet Earth. It exercises a force on planet Earth, which has implications for the planet. So is it so crazy to imagine that there's something somewhere else in the cosmos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shifts or does that has some impact on planet Earth? Lama lo, right? What was that thing they finally detected a few years ago? Someone who knows science will know this. With the Eldar, I forgot what it was called. There was this thing where they detected there's some kind of like waves that are like hitting planet Earth at a certain angle. Tremendous number of them from very, very far away. They picked up the signal.
Is it
No, not the background cosmic radiation. This is something else. This was something that actually like arrived at planet Earth, and we detected it. I'll
Gravitational waves.
I think it was the gravitational. I'm trying to remember. Was that the gravitational? The point is, okay, so Taka, when something shifted somewhere, it had an impact on planet Earth. Yeah, because it goes Baruch Hu Koyachol. So I learned that. So yeah. So okay, but the point here is, of course, we're still left to the machloket. Who's right? Who's wrong? Rabbi Shur, Rabbi Eliezer. We don't really have the answer, at least not at this point. But what we saw here is, and that's what I was trying to show you, is they each have to build their understanding of what happened in the Mabul. It's somewhere related to this Mazal Kima, which is associated with the rainy season, because Kima is in between two things, the shore and the tle, but somehow it impacted something on the other side of the sphere, such that either it was the rainy season, and boy, did it rain, and even though the system is supposed to be empty, suddenly tons of water is coming up from within the core of the Earth's crust, and it's boiling hot, etc. Or it's the end of the rainy season, it shouldn't be raining, but bizarre and strange, the rain is falling. What's not as strange is that the cisterns are full in ER because it just rained. Mar Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat, Adar. Nisan already is finishing or finished. So now the Mayanot were all filled. That was more. The greater nace of the Mabul is the falling of the rain. You understand what's going on? So he said, well, it could be this way, it could be that way. But the machloket is fundamental, is also setting the stage for us to try to understand a little bit about how the mazalot are functioning. And this is how we get to knowing what a shana is from a solar perspective, even if we don't know, as we do know today, that a year is actually the rotation, the revolution of the Earth around the sun. In the olden days, they thought it was actually the
sun going around the Earth.
Yeah. So okay, that's for consideration. I'll leave you with one thought because it's Elul, and it'll just be mind bending for you. But Rav Yoel Binun from the Gush, from the Gush Etzion area, he says that the discrepancy between the solar and the lunar year, we come around to Rosh Hashanah every year, and it's about 10 days off. So when's Yom Kippurim? Well, it's 11. I said it's about 10. 11 is about 10. It's a little more.
10 days later.
10 days after Rosh Hashanah, we come to Yom Kippurim, which is also considered part of the days of Rosh Hashanah. The discrepancy between the lunar cycle, which is how we get to Bakesli Yom Chagenu, and the solar cycle, actually there's a span between the one and the other every year. Now it's standardized at 10 for so many different reasons, halacha, ashkafa, ditra, but isn't it interesting? The Rosh Hashanah of one year, from a solar perspective, a year later, pretty much, off by a little bit, you're going to be 10 days off for Yom Kippurim. And those days are called the days of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. So even within the annual cycle, point being, there's still some kind of an idea that we're having a time of both the recognition of Bakesli Yom Chagenu, that it's happening according to the lunar cycle, and we're Mekadesh the Chodesh, and it's also Rosh Hashanah, but also there is something happening here about a solar year. Now, it's not really a solar year because it's still only 355 odd days, 354 and change in a lunar year, and that's what we do. Every 3 years, we have this corrective, but we sort of give a nod to the discrepancy between the solar and the lunar. How come? Because we have the period of the Yamim Noraim between Bein Kesa le'asor, which is also Bein the lunar and the solar, pretty much. That was a little mind bending. Okay, I count for tonight. I'll shut the recorder, and then you can ask me anything you want, and hopefully you're not too bad. You can keep it. You can give it back to me. We'll need it again in months when we get to the other stuff, but at least you'll have it in your fresh.